everyone and welcome back to our channel. My name is Malescu and I am a Florida Bar Board Certified Attorney in International Law and owner of Malescu Law, a law firm based in Miami, Florida, specializing in business law and U.S. immigration. We can assist you with all your immigration needs regardless of where you plan to go in the United States or where you currently reside. Today we are going to speak about some of our recent E-2 visa success stories, and we'll also discuss a little bit about each case, the E-2 treaty country where the investor is from, and the amount of money that was invested in the US business. But before we get started, please subscribe to our channel by clicking the bell button or the subscribe button. So for those of you who do not know, an E-2 visa is a treaty investor visa for the United States that allows you to make an investment in a US business if you are from one of the E-2 treaty countries and come and live and work in the United States and run your business here. You can make the investment by purchasing an existing company or starting a new US company or operating a franchise. The investment typically is minimum $50,000, but that depends on the nature of the business you are investing in or the status of the business at that point in time. It is possible to obtain an E-2 visa with less than $50,000, but of course those cases are a lot more challenging to prove to a consular officer that with less than $50,000 you are going to turn this business into a success. However, it is possible, but keep in mind those cases are challenging and require expertise. And same do those cases that are on the lower end where the company is being started or developed with $50,000 or around $50,000. However, we had success stories with $50,000 where the investor obtained a visa for the maximum amount of time. So it is possible, but as I said earlier, it is a bit challenging to obtain those approvals, and you do need an expert team to present a compelling case to the consular officer. Now, in order to qualify for the E-2 visa, the most important aspect is that you need to have a passport from one of the E-2 treaty countries. If you do not have a passport from one of the E-2 treaty countries, then you cannot apply for the E-2 visa. Now we are going to speak about some of our recent E-2 visa success stories. So first, we had an investor from Jamaica who invested around $50,000 in a software development company in Florida, and that software development company was actually in existence for about 2 years before the investor decided to put capital or additional capital in the business and apply for the E-2 visa. Despite the fact that the investment was on the lower end and this was already an existing business, that case was approved for the maximum amount of time under the treaty with Jamaica, and that is for 5 years. So the investor managed to obtain the E-2 visa for 5 years based on the treaty with Jamaica. And also the interview was relatively short. It took the investor about 10 minutes in order to obtain the E-2 approval. Then we had another case, this time with an investor from Canada. The investor invested around $115,000 in a truck repair shop in Arizona. In that case specifically, we received a request for further evidence regarding the investment amount and where the money went, and we were successful in overcoming the request for further evidence, and that E-2 visa also got approved for the maximum amount of time, this time under the treaty with Canada, the E-2 treaty with Canada, and the investor obtained the E-2 visa at the US consulate in Toronto for 5 years. Another case we had, this time for an investor from Romania who invested in a bakery in Florida. In this particular case, the investor purchased the business, so the business already existed, this bakery already existed. They purchased the business, but they also purchased the real estate that came with the bakery, and they invested somewhere around $350,000 between the business and the real estate. That case was also approved for the maximum amount of time. The investor obtained an E-2 visa for 5 years under the treaty with Romania, and that case was approved at the US consulate in Bucharest. The interview was longer in that specific case. It took about 30 minutes before the consular officer was convinced about this E-2 visa and ended up approving this E-2 visa. Then we had another case, this time for a dog grooming business for an investor from Italy. The investor invested around $150,000 in this dog grooming business, which is based in California, and the E-2 visa was approved for the maximum amount of time. Then we had another case for an E-2 investor from Canada, again, that invested in a dump truck hauling company, and also the company was doing junk removal. The investor invested around $225,000, but they didn't actually invest the entire amount in cash. What they did, they had equipment and machinery that was used for the junk removal, and we used the equipment and the machinery as a form of investment into the US business, as well as some cash. I do not recall exactly how much was put in cash, but it was somewhere around $50,000, $70,000 in cash, and the rest was machinery and equipment. And then we also had recently an investor from the United Kingdom that invested in an educational software company, where the investor actually developed this software that we managed to appraise, and the investment was the actual software that they contributed to the company. Another investor we recently had was an investor from Ukraine who invested in a beauty retailer, in an e-commerce store, invested around $100,000, and we applied under the new treaty with Ukraine, which allows for an E-2 visa for 27 months instead of 3 months, how it used to be until recently. So the investor obtained the E-2 visa at the US consulate in Bern in Switzerland with a Ukrainian passport for 27 months, which is the maximum allowed for the E-2 visa under the treaty with Ukraine. Another E-2 visa case we had success with was for an investor from Slovenia who had already an existing business in California, specializing in developing YouTube channels and other Amazon stores and other online stores. That case was for an existing business. The investment was somewhere around $100,000, and that case was also approved for 5 years under the treaty with Slovenia. Now, in that specific case, the E-2 interview lasted a while, somewhere around 30 to 45 minutes. These are some of our recent E-2 visa success stories, and I hope you find these stories informative and useful for you. But of course, we have other success stories and different cases with different level of complexity. This is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel, and if you need to get in touch with us, you have our contact information in this video and below this video. We will see you soon. Bye.